Okay, so my reaction to the clip is that it's offensive because it uses a stereotype for humor and it represents the entire LGBT plus community. What they're trying to gain is humor, as I could tell from the clip, and they haven't really done any research, or it seems like they haven't spent time with real people from the community, and they just use stereotypes that they've heard. So what we can do to help the problem is have characters that are more than just a token gay character. You know, have backstories, show them as if they're just normal people with their sexuality, what it is.
I think it's really sad because, especially the Aladdin one, because these are things that we're exposing little children to, misrepresentation of Muslims or Arab. That's in films for little kids is just, it hurts because as an Arab, it's what people will think when they see me. People who are brutal, people who don't care about other people, who just want to kill. And then the other film where they were like, kill the girl or blow up this place, it just portrays us as people who are heartless. I think they do it partly for comedy purposes and also to put hate and blame for certain things on a group of people. I think people need to stop putting them into one category. For instance, the acts of certain terrorists is not supposed to represent a whole entire religion or a whole entire ethnicity. It doesn't make any sense. For instance, if there was a terrorist from a different religion, that's not going to be put on, that's not going to represent what everybody else is, and that's how Islam should be portrayed. Islam literally means peace. So why this shouldn't be the way that they're portraying Islam to the whole American community.
To me, I mean, I think it's the reality that lots of people of color are still, unfortunately, having to play these stereotypical roles in Hollywood because of the basically the lack of representation of people of color in these roles as directors, producers, or just put in positions where they can write their own screenplays. We're still relegated to continue to play these roles that I saw similar to in the clip. Well, I think first of all, number one and foremost is that going into any artistic school is really expensive. And so for communities of color that traditionally come from underprivileged communities or underrepresented communities, we don't have the resources to fully pay $100,000 scholarship to go to the School of the Arts, for instance. So a lot of us don't choose that pathway. We end up going to community colleges, or we end up going to other places where maybe art is kind of out of our realm. There's a lack of representation of recruiting students to be lead characters for drama, for drama clubs or drama classes in the school systems as well. Traditionally, when you think of someone playing Romeo and Juliet, you don't think of an African American person, you don't think of a Latino, you don't even think of other people who have different sexual orientation. And so we kind of get relegated to these stereotypes. Two, I think is because Hollywood has maintained its dominance in only uplifting white voices. That's just the reality. The hashtag Oscars are so white came because the reality that people of color don't get put into real positions where they could really, they can really tell their own stories from their own perspective. Is usually white writers thinking about what they know about Latinos or other people of color, and they write it in how they see it, not how we see ourselves. And I'm talking about we as a Chicano person, as a Raza person, as a Latino person. We don't get to tell our stories. No one funds it.
This problem. How do you feel about problem? How do you fix that problem? Okay.
Alright.
Am I holding that or not?
No,
It's just gonna be
okay.
over there.
Wait,
So,
should I do over?
if you do over, you're gonna have to be standing on that chair over there. And that's like, yeah.
Not in the shot.
Under's fine. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Alright, please forgive us if it comes off like a little bit if you're awkward with the question.
That's fine.
Alright, first one is, how do you feel about...
Am I looking here or here?
Oh, look at
That's
that.
what's
Oh, okay.
Give me right here. How do you feel about how the media misrepresents minority groups, and not just like ethnic minorities, but also like religious minorities? I'm gonna say regarding sex, also those kinds of minorities. Stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Oopsie daisy. Sorry. Oh my god.
Alright.
The camera just died. Hold on. I gotta clear it up. This is just an unlucky.
Did a battery die?
No, it's Sorry. Did I say die? I meant battery's filling up. Sorry, I'm releasing all these footage. Dude. Sorry about Cruz. Did not mean.
Alright. Our meetings are probably nothing. Summer reading. You guys okay with this? Yes.
Alright.
That's how it goes. What do you guys think about this? I don't care.
Because it's the same from last year.
It's
also,
basically consensus. Yeah. Generally, there's always someone that like just yeah.
right? Oh, gotta put in one more book. Just replace something.
Alright, let's do
Yeah.
that.
Alright.
3, 2.
Okay, so in regards to the question of representation of minority groups or groups that are rarely represented, I mean, anyone or most people can say that, like, well, I'll start with this. I think that we want to, like, believe that we can tell people don't believe what you always see on TV, but I think that at the end of the day, like, representation in Hollywood, in mainstream television, in American television in particular, given that its reach is so global, it's going to matter, right? It's going to create narratives that affirm a particular group's experience and shows the whole gamut of the different identities that one particular group can have. And so, like, you look at just like even romantic films. Like, it's generally like this Prince Charming, like, white male guy, and then you also have, like, if we just talk about like white folks in general, you have this gamut in which, like, white folks can be the villain, they can be the savior in the story, they can be the romantic interest. Even like the average Joe white guys in like these rom-coms, like, get to have this identity affirmed, right? So like those, what's that movie, like Seth Rogen, right? Like, average Joe white guy, even though he doesn't fit sort of this prototype of like the, you know, masculine, muscular hunk, he still has his sort of his that sort of identity affirmed. Even nerdy guys like that play, like Matt Serra plays, and those sort of identities get affirmed. But we see very little when it comes to people that, I mean, where's my rom-com with like people in wheelchairs, you know, or people with facial deformities, or with you know, that are grossly overweight and Asian, you know what I mean? So that's extremely lacking in terms of like representation.
Good stuff, Dela Cruz. It just cut off a little bit towards the end.
Oh,
but I think
okay.
we're fine.
Wait, what do you mean?
It just
How
like,
much?
huh?
How much did it?
It's like, you know when that happened,
Yeah.
and then that's when it stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then next question would be.
Hold on, wait.
Mom, do you want to get a different camera angle?
No, when Josh, for now, because like Dela Cruz is gonna be basically at the. We're gonna put B-roll over Dela Cruz.
Oh, okay, I see.
So like we don't really need for the angles, but then when
Okay.
Josh is free, that's where we're gonna get 2 DSLRs. So when I'm
Okay.
doing the main. Josh is
Oh,
gonna be
I see,
doing
I
the-
see, okay. Just like other people, right?
Yeah, just so tell the question to Dela Cruz, and then so
And
we can
then-
prep for it. I'm just gonna delete.
Last question would be, how will we fix the problem that we have over here with how, like, there's this misrepresentation in the media? How will we go about solving it and making sure, like, it's just non-existent, like, it's not a problem anymore?
Okay.
Sorry, we really should have just deleted this before. So who else do we need to? After Dela Cruz, Lopez.
Haley Lynch taking a test.
Yeah, but we need boys' room.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
I
that's
forgot.
gonna be sit down.
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Lopez would be.
Someone took a picture of Jonathan.
Whoa.
Jonathan was button.
Give me your butt.
Someone took a picture of boy Bobby.
We're good? Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. All right. So
Actually, I took a picture.
fixing the problem, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think in terms of fixing the problem of like representation and having a more accurate representation of this global population, I think is producers have to be willing to fund projects that speak to the experiences of different people. I think the consumer, we underestimate the consumer. I find it hard to believe that white audience only want to watch white people. I think that we see this with the success of films like the Black Panther. And so like there's evidence in that like people are itching for diverse stories and stories that don't necessarily reflect maybe a white woman or a white person. And even beyond that, I think people are, at the end of the day, they just want a good story. Not everything has to be, there's an argument that they say, they want white folks because white folks are attractive or have been projected or portrayed as being attractive. The thing is, like, you have shows like Minions and like Harry Potter series are highly successful. It has nothing to do with any sexual aspect or attractiveness, and they just tell a really good story. And I think like these projects are like worth funding. At the end of the day, you fund a good story and find a way to speak to the experiences of all people, different types of people, people that are not necessarily represented.
All right.
That's all Delicators.
Thank you, Mr. Dope.
All right.
Sorry we took up.
Oh, no.
some time.
You guys are good. That's an interesting project. You guys are gonna like make movies one day.
Yeah.
We'll see.
On the side. On the side.
On the side.
You know, it's crazy. In college, you study all kinds of stuff. My friend, he studies porn, and he wants to make revolutionary porn.
Shit's crazy.
Like
Really?
avant-garde,
Like reverse, like, you know how like males are always disrespecting women?
Yeah.
He wants to make, not like reverse disrespecting men, but like,
Flip it in a
yeah, like it's I don't ask too much because it's weird.
I think
That's crazy.
I think that exists, but I'm not
It's
sure.
studies. Yeah.
That's crazy. What the hell? Honestly,
That's a cool concept.
that shit is crazy.
All right, see you, Mr. Dope.
See ya.